You guys are live and ready to go.
Hello, everybody. I'm just going to adjust this real quick. I hope you're doing well. My name is Jeff Gibby. I'm going to have the pleasure of reading a legal disclaimer and introducing our guest today. So I want to say thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Let's go ahead and get to the disclaimer here. Today's demonstration is designed to instruct you on using MetaStock and the accompanying software plugins. It's not a recommendation to buy or sell, but rather guidelines to interpreting and using specific indicators and features within the software. The information, software, and techniques presented today should only be used by investors who are aware of the risk inherent in trading. MetaStock shall have no liability for any investment decisions based on the use of the software, any trading strategies, or any information provided in connection with the company. So I want to, today we do have a special guest. His name is Kevin Nelson. Kevin has had a very, very profound impact on my own personal career. He hired me initially at MetaStock. Kevin I would consider Kevin an extremely good friend of mine. One of the things I will say about Kevin is he does a very, very good job. I enjoy the way he kind of looks at things, the way he explains things, and the classes that he does. He's going to talk a little bit more about it as he gives his class, but he is a personal friend of mine. I appreciate Kevin, especially appreciate the fact that he gave me a job. So, Kevin, it's your turn. How are you doing today?
Great, thanks, Jeff.
You bet. Let's go ahead and turn over the presentation to you.
All right, very good. Thanks, Jeff. That was a nice introduction, and you didn't even make fun of my picture this time, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I've got a new jokes. My daughters went back to school, and so they're giving me new dad jokes. I would try a chemistry joke, but the last time I tried it, it got no reaction.
I would probably laugh, though.
All right. It's all yours, Kevin. Thanks, man.
Thanks again. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you very much for coming tonight. I appreciate it. As Jeff said, I originally was working for the MetaStock team there back in the early 90s, and in 2008, I left MetaStock and we started a training company where the only thing we do is we train people on how to use the MetaStock and get everything that they want to get out of the program. So we've got a lot of different ways that we can help you. So what we're looking at right here, this is our website, which is up at learnmetastock.com. And I'll talk more about that at the end of today's presentation. But today, what I want to do is I want to give you a demonstration of really how to use the Expert Advisor. And we're going to use this Expert Advisor or really kind of build one from scratch. And this is pretty much my favorite way to teach this, because this will really kind of teach you all the ins and outs of using the Expert Advisor. And if you have any types of questions, make sure and let me know. Send me a message. And at the end of today's presentation, I'll be more than happy to answer any type of questions that you might have. So please don't be shy about asking. I can guarantee that if you've got a question, I'm sure other people have the exact same question. So what I've got planned for you today is we're going to create, again, like I say, an Expert Advisor from scratch. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this step by step. And step one is we're going to decide on the indicators that we possibly want to use in creating this Expert Advisor, and then we'll create a plan of how we want to display them, meaning do we want to get arrows, do we want to get the colors on there, or whatever else that you want to do. The Expert Advisor can display this information a lot of different ways, extremely powerful. So we'll use a few of the different tools that we have available inside of it, and then finally, of course, then we'll go ahead and create the expert. So the game plan for this system here is step one is we're going to identify the trend. And the idea here with this is especially pertinent to newer traders. One of the best pieces of advice I can give to somebody who's kind of getting started is what will really serve you well is that if you can determine what the overall trend is. And you probably have heard this before, but the idea is that if the overall market is moving up, basically 80 to 85% of individual securities are also moving up, and vice versa. If the market's really selling off, you can pretty much plan on 80, 85% of the securities also falling. So the idea is that if you're in tune with the overall trend, that can really help kind of put the odds more in your favor. So step one is we'll identify a trend. And then step two, what we'll do is we'll look for swing trades to kind of really confirm that we're in either an up or down trend. And then lastly, we'll use another indicator to kind of help pinpoint our entries and exits for this overall trend. So the first part that we're going to do is to identify the overall trend. The easiest way to do something like this is to use a moving average. And there's a lot of different ways we can use moving averages. We can look at the actual shape of the line. We can look at the prices in it. We can look at, multiple moving averages and so forth. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to keep it pretty simple. And we're going to just take a look at the price in relation to the moving average, and we'll see what that looks like. So step one, let's go ahead and open up a chart here. And to get started here, I'm going to go ahead and open up a chart here of the Qs. And one thing I want to point out here is I know we've got people in here that, have different levels of experience with MetaStock. I'm sure we've got a lot of people that have had MetaStock for years and know the ins and outs and so forth. But I also know that we also have people in here that are brand new to MetaStock, or maybe, excuse me, don't even have MetaStock. So today's webinar is going to be a little bit more advanced. So if you are brand new to MetaStock, or aren't that familiar with the different tools and the formula language, if you can at least kind of bear with us here, you'll at least be able to see the power and the capability of some of the different tools that we have available. So the first thing I'm going to do is from our indicator quick list up here, excuse me, is I'm going to grab a moving average and I'm going to drag it directly on top of our prices here. And what we'll use is we'll just use, for example, like a 50-period simple moving average here, and we'll plot that here on our chart. And I'll go ahead and make that line a little bit heavier just so we can see it there. So again, we can use the prices in relation to the moving average in a lot of different ways, but we'll keep it really simple. And we'll just determine, or basically say that if the closing price of the security is above the moving average, we'll call that a bullish trend. And then vice versa, for example, like in a section, for example, where maybe the market is really selling off and the prices are below, or the closing price is below that moving average, we'll call that a bearish trend. Okay. So again, just really straightforward. Now, to identify this, what we're going to do is we're going to open up our expert advisor. I'll click on this little guy up here at the very top, and we're going to create an expert advisor from scratch. And the way that you do that is you click on this new button over here on the right-hand side, and then step one is you give your expert advisor a name. Now, what I typically like to do with the formulas and the systems and so forth that I create inside the program is I like to put a wild card at the very beginning of the name, and typically I use an exclamation point. And the idea is that inside of MetaStock, if you write a formula and you just give it a name like moving average or whatever, it gets stored alphabetically in the list. And what you'll see in these lists, some of these lists can be pretty big, and it's pretty easy to lose track of them. So what I do is I'll put a wild card at the very beginning of it, and that way my formulas at least get grouped together, and more often than likely, they're actually up at the top of the list. So I'm going to go ahead and just call this our expert advanced class. And what I'm going to do here, so you'll see we've got a number of different tabs to work with inside the expert advisor, but the first one we're going to work with is just this one right here, which is called the trends tab. The trends tab is what controls what we call the ribbon. And the ribbon can be displayed, for example, either at the bottom or the top of the chart. And I'll show you what that looks like here in just a second. So for the first thing, what we want to do to identify an overall trend is we want to look at the closing price in relation to the moving average. So this is the area where the formula language really kind of comes into play. So for those of you who are brand new to MetaStock and really aren't that familiar with the formula language and so forth, there's a couple different ways to kind of think about this. And number one is that you might be thinking, wow, do I have to learn how to be a programmer in order to really, use MetaStock? And the answer is no. There's plenty of systems inside of here that you can literally just click on and apply to your charts. But for those of you who actually want to learn a little bit more about it and really kind of get the most that you can out of the program, that's where the formula language will become important. And that's kind of the area where we can really help you. So to get started here, I'm going to go ahead and write a formula here to identify a bullish condition. And what we want to identify is if the closing price of the security is above that moving average. So to write that formula, the way that you identify the closing price is just with the word close. And if I want to look at, or basically say that it's above or greater than the moving average, we'll use a greater than sign, and then the formula for a moving average. So To identify the moving average now, or the formula for the moving average, again, if you're not familiar with how to write this, one thing that you can always do is you'll always have access to the functions or the library of the different formulas. And the way that you access them is you click on this functions button, in this case over here on the right hand side. And what you'll notice is that when you open up this dialog here, there's going to be all kinds of different formulas here that you're going to have access to. In fact, this list can be pretty intimidating, to say the least. But over here on the left-hand side, these are the different categories of indicators, for example. So let's just say hypothetically that you want to write a formula for a candlestick. You know, you want to look for dojis or hammers or whatever the case may be. What you could do is you could click on the candlestick, and over here on the right-hand side will be all the formulas pertaining to candlesticks. So again, like I say, this can be really, really helpful, you know, as far as helping you get through these different things that you might want to do. But in this case, what I want to do is I want to click on the all category on the left-hand side, and I want to load the formula for a moving average. So I could scroll down here alphabetically, and you can see this list is pretty big. Or what you can also do, if you just click over here on the right-hand side and just start typing, for example, like MOV, for example, that'll jump you down to that group of formulas that start with MOV, which in this case, I'm looking for moving average. So I'll go ahead and select that. Down here in this format window, this will give me an idea of what that formula is going to be written or how it's going to be written. And down here at the bottom, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you select both paste arguments and show English names. Click on OK, and that'll paste it right in here for you. And the nice thing about doing it that way, that'll give you a hint of how to write the formula. So for example, this is asking for the data array. And the data array means, what do you want the moving average to be calculated off of? Do you want to create a moving average of the open or the close or the volume or an indicator? Well, this again, like I say, is where you specify it. So in this case, I want to make sure that it's a moving average of the closing price. For the periods, just the number of periods that you want to use for the moving average. And these are the different types of moving averages. E is exponential, S is simple, T is time series, TRI is triangular, VAR is variable, W is weighted, and VOL is volume adjusted. So as you can see, you've got a lot of choices here, but we'll just keep it really simple. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all this and just put in the letter S, which represents simple. So our formula says the close is greater or above a 50-period simple moving average. Now, if I've written this and it's written correctly, or I feel confident in it, what I can do is I can make a copy of this formula and then go down here to the bearish side and then just go ahead and paste in that same formula. And for the bearish side, what I'm looking for here is I want the closing price below that moving average or less than the moving average. So what I'll do is I'll change that greater than sign to a less than sign. And again, now this formula reads that the close is lower or below its 50-period moving average. Now, to control what the ribbon's going to look like, I'm going to click on this ribbon button over here on the right-hand side. And this will open up another little dialog where we can specify, first of all, whether or not we even want to see a ribbon, whether or not we want to have vertical lines, or we want to see it in an inner window or all inner windows, whatever the case may be. But I'll tell it that I don't want to see vertical lines and I just want to see the ribbon. And then these color codes, for example, green for bullish, red for bearish, black for neutral, that's perfect. And you'll see it'll also give us a label over here. And we'll click on OK. And to see it, we'll click on OK. And then what we need to do is we need to attach it to our chart by clicking on the attach button and then close down the dialog. And this will display the ribbon down here at the bottom. So as you can see, when it's bullish, it's going to be labeled, or basically color coded green and labeled bullish. And when it's bearish, it's going to be red and labeled bearish. So what you can also do is that if you hold down your left mouse button, you can drag it to different parts of your window so you can have it displayed wherever you want. Now, the first thing that I want to do whenever I create something like this is I want to stop at this point and I want to make sure that this thing is displaying the information correctly, meaning that when that closing price drops down below that moving average, that ribbon had better be red and labeled bearish, or otherwise I know that I've got a problem. And then vice versa, if it goes up above the moving average like it does over here on the right-hand side, that's color-coded green and labeled bullish. So if it's, if that's working, or if I'm happy with that, then of course, then I can move on to the next step. So now for our next step, what I want to do in this example here is I want to look at a possible swing type of situation, meaning I want to shorten up the length of our indicators here a little bit to basically quantify that we're definitely in an uptrend or definitely in a downtrend. There's a lot of different types of swing indicators that we can use, but probably the most popular one is called a MACD. And a MACD is actually made up of 3 different moving averages, but it does a really good job of identifying, exactly what the prices are doing and these different turning points as well. So what we'll do is we'll color code our price bars to actually verify that the MACD is either bullish or bearish. So to do that or add that to our chart, first of all, let's go ahead and plot the MACD so we can see it up here at the very top. So I'll go ahead and grab a MACD from our list here. I'll just drag it up here to the very top here, and we'll plot this as a separate indicator here. I'll just choose the default parameters. We'll click on OK. So in general, the way that most people are taught the MACD when they're kind of getting started is that they're looking at the difference of these 2 lines. The solid red line is the MACD itself, and then the dotted line is actually a moving average of the solid line. And if you put your cursor directly over one of them, it'll give you a little pop-up and tell you exactly what each one is. But as you can see, that this one is a 9-period exponential moving average of that solid line. So the way that most people are taught this, again, is they're looking at the relationship of these 2 lines, and that is if the solid line's above the dotted line, generally that's considered to be bullish, and vice versa. If it drops down below that dotted line, that's generally considered to be bearish. There's other ways to interpret it as well. I mean, we could look for divergences. We could look for it in, relation to the 0 line. Again, a lot of different ways we can go about it. But again, we'll try to keep it pretty simple and just look at the relationship of these 2 lines to each other. All right. So let's go ahead and add that to it. And we'll call this bullish if the solid line's above the dotted line. And we'll call this bearish if that solid line goes down below that dotted line. So to add that to our formula, we'll go ahead and open up our expert here again. And this time I'll just go ahead and open up the expert advanced class. And now I'm going to jump over here to this tab, which is called the highlights tab. And the highlights tab is the part that actually will color code your price bars based on whatever it is that you want. So in this case, I'll click on new and I'll give it a name. And this one I'm going to call this MACD bullish, for example. And we'll color code this first one to be green. And our formula now is I want to again identify where the solid line's above the dotted line. So first of all, the formula for the solid line, the way that that one's written, again, if you don't know how to do it, of course, you can always go out to the library by clicking on the functions. But the way that that formula is written, it's written as just MACD, open and close parentheses. Now, here's another thing that might be helpful for you getting started with these formulas, is that when you paste in a formula and you choose the parameters to paste in the arguments and everything else, if it just plots or basically pastes in something that says MACD, open and close parentheses, what that's telling you is that the formula has everything that it needs in order for it to be calculated. In other words, it's not looking for anything else from you. It's not looking for you to supply, whether you want to base it off the close or the number of periods that you want to use and so forth. It has everything. So this formula, MACD, open and close parentheses, will give us the value of this solid line here in the background. Now, the dotted line is a 9-period exponential moving average of the solid line. So to write that formula, the formula would be MOV for moving average, open parenthesis. And again, you start off with the data array. Now, when we wrote the first moving average, we did a moving average of the closing price. But this one, we want to do a moving average of the MACD itself. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and put in the formula for the MACD, which is just MACD. Oops. There we go. If I can type, there we go. And open and close parentheses. So MACD, open and close parentheses, is our data array, followed by a comma, the number of periods that you want to use, follow with a comma, and then the type of moving average, which in this case is going to be E, which represents exponential. So our second formula right here is a moving average of a 9. Let me try that again. It's a 9-period exponential moving average of the MACD. So in other words, this formula right here will give us the value of this dotted line, okay? Now, what I want to know is I want to know when the solid line is above the dotted line. So I'm going to put a greater than sign in between these two formulas. And by doing that, that should give us, again, like I say, when that's true. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll color code it green. We'll click on OK, and then click on OK. And again, click on close, and we'll see what this looks like. Okay, so down here, we'll look at the prices here. And let me go ahead and fatten that up here just a little bit better. So here you can see now we've got a lot of green bars here. And again, what I'm looking for and verifying that they turn green right when that solid line goes above the dotted line, and they stay green all the way up until, for example, that they cross down. It looks like they must have crossed down here and here and here and so forth. But a more obvious point is this point right back up in here, which was the end of February. So again, right where that line crossed down, you can see those price bars then turn black. So once we have this part working and it's working correctly, now what we can do is we can take that same information and then we can basically put it into the bearish side. So we'll color code these price bars to be red when that solid line's below the dotted line. So to do that, let's go ahead and go back into our expert here again. And there we go. I'll go ahead and just double click on it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up that formula that we just wrote, and I'm going to make a copy of that. I'll click on cancel, and now I'll click on the new button over here on the right hand side, and we're going to call this MACD bearish, and we'll color code this one to be red, for example. And I'll paste in that same formula, and the only change I need to make is I just need to change that greater than sign to a less than sign. So now this is going to say that when that solid line is below the dotted line, I want to color code those price bars to be red. So we'll click on OK, OK, and click on close. And there we go. So that's perfect. So I can see exactly right where that crosses down, that color codes all of our price bars to be red. So again, what we want to do at this point is we just want to verify that this is plotting correctly. And if it is, then of course, then we can keep moving on here. All right. Now, we've actually got a couple different things happening here. So let's add a third thing to this. And the third thing that we're going to add to it is we're going to pinpoint some entries and exits. And to do that, we're going to use another indicator, which is the stochastic oscillator. Stochastic oscillator is an oscillator type of indicator, and it does a really good job of identifying if something's relatively high or low compared to where it's recently been. And the idea is that if that indicator gets stretched in one direction or the other, there's a chance, or there's a higher likelihood that the prices are at a point where they might turn in the opposite direction. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to identify that type of condition, and we're going to use it, or we're going to identify that with buy and sell signals there on our chart. So for this one, let's go ahead and grab that stochastic, and we'll plot that on our chart. So again, I'll scroll down through my list here, and I'll grab a stochastic oscillator, and I'll drag it up here on top of our chart there. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and just choose the default parameters, which are 5, 3, and 3. And we'll leave the color style. We'll just leave that all as a default. Click on OK. And I'll go ahead and make this window a little bit bigger just so we can see this one. Okay. So again, the oscillator, like a lot of other oscillators, like Williams %R, RSI, all of these things are basically kind of doing the same thing. And that is they identify when something's relatively high or low compared to where it's recently been. So same thing with the MACD. There's a number of different ways we can interpret this, but in general, what we're looking for, you can look for the indicator itself to be down below a low level to determine that the indicator is, for example, is oversold at that point, or the indicator goes up above an upper level to determine that it's relatively overbought at that point. And again, a lot of times what happens is when they hit these different areas like this, a lot of times the prices will reverse and go in the opposite direction. So what we're going to do for this example is we're going to do it a little bit different, and we're going to use it like we did with the MACD. And that is, we'll just look for the crossing points of these two different lines. And that is, if the solid line goes above that dotted line, we'll indicate that as a buy signal. And vice versa, if it crosses down below that dotted line, we'll use that as a sell signal. So like the MACD, this solid line itself is actually the stochastic itself. And it uses the default parameters of 5 and 3. then this dotted line is a 3-period simple moving average of the solid line. So like the MACD, again, this is just a moving average of the solid line, but in this case, it's a 3-period simple moving average. So let's go ahead and write the formula for this one. Now, the difference, again, on this one, what we're going to be doing differently than the MACD is we're going to identify exactly where these two things are crossing each other. I don't necessarily just want to know when it's above the dotted line or below the dotted line. I'm more interested in where it's crossing each other, okay? So to do that, we're going to incorporate another formula here. And what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to this tab now, which is the symbols tab. And this will give us or allow us the opportunity to put symbols directly on the chart based on when the indicators are doing something that we specify. So I'll click on the new button. And for our first one, we're just going to call this, for example, like a stochastic buy signal. And the condition is we want to identify specifically where that solid line is crossing up above that dotted line. So this is another formula here that I'm going to show you how to work with tonight. And this formula is a really handy formula to learn how to work with if, once you get to that point. But it's what it's called. It's called the cross function. And the way the cross function is written, it's written as cross, open parenthesis, and then data array number 1, followed by a comma, and then data array number 2. And the idea here is that when these two items cross each other, this will then basically make that formula true or give us a positive response. And how this works is that whatever the item is higher, you put in the place of data array number 1, and whatever is lower, you put in the place of data array number 2. So for example, let's say in this example that I want to know when the solid line goes above the dotted line. So what I want to know is I want to put the formula for that solid line in the place of data array number 1, which in this case is the stochastic. So the formula for the stochastic is written as stochastic, or S-T-O-C-H, open parenthesis, and then the parameters, which is 5, 3. So that formula right there, stochastic 5,3, is the formula for this solid line right there. Now, the formula for the dotted line is a 3-period moving average of the solid line. So let me jump down here a couple spaces and let me write that one separately, so maybe make it a little bit easier to see. So the formula for this dotted line, again, is a moving average. So we start off with MOV, open parenthesis, and then the data array, which in this case is going to be the stochastic. So I'll just make a copy of that. I'll paste it right in there. And then I'll follow that with a comma. And then it wants to know how many periods of a moving do we want to use for this moving average, which in this case is we want to use 3, followed by a comma, and then the type of moving average, which in this case is going to be exponential. So I put in the letter E for exponential. So this again is going to be a 3-period exponential moving average of the stochastic itself. So I'll go ahead and make a copy of that formula. And I'll paste it right over the top of data array number 2, and then I'll get rid of this other part right here. Now, watch what happens here. If I click on OK at this point, and that box goes away, that means that I've got it into a format that at least the program can understand. And if the program can understand it, then we can continue to move on from it. If, for example, that you go to close this box and it doesn't close, you'll get a message at least trying to help you what's happening with that particular formula. And it'll help you try to fix that. So again, like I say, it can be pretty helpful there when you're trying to work through these different items. So for this example now, I want to identify this particular situation where the stochastic crosses up above that dotted line. And I want to identify that with a buy signal. So the way that you can control that is click on the graphic tab up here at the very top. And for the graphic itself, you can choose whatever type of indicator that you want to see plotted on your chart. But I'll choose, for example, like an upward pointing buy arrow. And we can choose the size of it and then the color of it. And I'll choose, for example, like green. And then we can also tell it where it's going to plot or how it's going to plot. For example, in this case, I want the symbol below the price plot. In other words, if I get a buy signal, I want it below the price bar. okay? And then if we want to put a label on it, we can also do that as well. And there we can also choose where the label is going to show up in accordance to that actual symbol as well. So I'll click on OK, and let's take a look at it and see how it works. So we'll click on OK, and again, click on Close. And now you'll see we've got a bunch of arrows here on our chart here. And again, what we want to do is we want to look really closely at each time here that the solid line is crossing up above the dotted line. And we want to make sure that this buy signal or this upward pointing arrow, for example, is identifying that specific point in time. And as you can see here, as we kind of look at it, you can see that it is actually doing a pretty good job of identifying that, that particular signal. So that's perfect. All right. So now let's go ahead and do that for the bearish side. And the nice thing about this, again, is like once we're to this point, a lot of this now we're just kind of copying and pasting it. So I'll go back into our expert here, open it back up, and I'll go ahead and double click on it. And this time I'll just make a copy of that buy signal that I created before. We'll click on OK. And this time I'm going to go ahead and click on New to create a new stochastic sell signal. So we'll call this stochastic sell. And I'll paste in that same formula. But the difference is now I want this formula to identify where that solid line is going down below that dotted line. So the way that we do this is we just reverse these two different data arrays, meaning that we want to put the moving average first, followed by a comma, followed by the stochastic itself. Oops, let me go ahead and try that again. And that is stochastic, open parenthesis, 5, 3. And then you close the whole thing off with a parenthesis at the very end. All right. So I'll click on the graphic tab. And for this one, I want to use a downward pointing arrow. And again, we'll leave the size large and we'll color code it to be red, for example. But this time I want it above the price plot. So when I get a sell signal like this, I want it above the price bars. So we'll click on OK. And let's take a look at that. Click on OK, close that down, and now you'll see we've got a bunch of sell signals here. So same thing, I want to grab my crosshairs over here, and I want to make sure that wherever that's crossing down, that's where I'm getting the sell signal. So here you can see it kind of bounced around quite a bit. Here's a little bit better signal right there. There's another signal right here. Here's another signal, and so forth. And the idea is, again, like I say, that we want to make sure that that's crossing down. Oh, actually, you know what? I did make a mistake here. This is actually a simple moving average, and I wrote this to be an exponential moving average. So let's go back into that again, and let's just make that change real quick, just so they make sure that we're using the correct one. So I'm going to go to the buy signal, and I'm going to change that back to a simple moving average instead. And then I'm going to go to the sell signal, and I'm going to change that moving average type to a simple as well. And again, click on OK. And let's try that one more time. We'll click on Close. And you might think that that might not make that big of a difference, but here's a pretty good thing for you to kind of experiment with the program, which I think is actually really interesting, is take, for example, just go ahead and plot a regular chart. And then on your chart, take a moving average, put, for example, like an exponential moving average. And let's say you use a 20-period moving average. Plot a 20-period moving average on it. And then in addition to that, then drag another moving average, use the same time periods, like 20 periods, but this time put an exponential moving average on it, and then maybe add another one and so forth. But what you'll see is you'll see how these moving averages are calculated and how sensitive they are and so forth. And what you'll find is that the exponential moving averages you'll find will be actually more sensitive than a simple moving average as a general rule. So again, now I made those changes to it again. And now again, like I say, we just kind of verify that again, that sell signal is now crossing or basically giving us a sell signal at that specific point in time there. Okay. So if you make any changes or make anything that's, written incorrectly or whatever, it's easy enough to go back in and make any adjustments to it there as well. All right. Okay. So now let's go ahead and take this one step further, and let's talk about how to possibly combine all this together. And that is, instead of actually just kind of plotting everything separately, let me show you how you can combine these different signals with the overall trend and with the MACD itself. So to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to go back into it again. And since we've already have written everything, again, this actually becomes a little bit easier because now, again, what we'll primarily be doing is just kind of copying and pasting. So what I want to do now is I want to modify our formula here so that I only get buy signals in a confirmed uptrend, and I only get sell signals in a confirmed downtrend. So to do that, or add that to our expert, let's go ahead and open it back up. And I'm going to go to my stochastic buy signal. So now this one, again, like I say, is only given the buy signal based on when the stochastic is crossing up or down. But I want to add to it the moving average and the MACD as well. So to do that, I'm going to go to the Trends tab first, and I'm going to grab the formula that we just created for the bullish side. I'm going to go back to the Symbols tab, and I'm going to open up the stochastic buy signal. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make some spaces at the top here, and I'll paste in that formula. And so now we've got two different formulas here for our buy signal. We've got the close being above its 50-period moving average, and we also have the stochastic crossing up above its 3-period moving average. So watch what happens again if I click on OK and we get to a point where the program doesn't understand what to do. And what you'll see is it'll give you some hints on what it's expecting. And if I click on OK, if you look closely, for example, you'll see I've got my cursor, it's flashing right before the word cross. In other words, it's expecting something at that point. So what this is doing, or the reason why it's having a problem, is because this is one formula and this is one formula. And it just wants to know, how do we want to combine these two different formulas together? So what I want to do in this example is I want to put the word "and" in between them, because I want to make sure that both of these are true. Meaning that I want to make sure that the close is above its 50-period moving average and the stochastic has crossed up above its moving average. Okay, so I'll click on OK. And then let's go ahead and go to the Highlights tab, and I'll grab this formula, which had to do with the MACD being bullish and so forth. So I'll go ahead and grab that formula right there, and I'll make a copy of it and go to the Symbols tab. And again, I'll go into this first buy signal. And what I'll do is I'll put some spaces in here and paste in that formula and follow that with an "and." So now I've got three different conditions. The close is above its 50-period moving average, and the MACD is above its moving average, and the stochastic is crossing up above its moving average. And what I'll also do is I'm going to go ahead and change the name of this from a stochastic to a combo buy signal. There we go. So this one is now called combo buy signal instead of just stochastic. So we'll click on OK, and we'll click on OK, and click on close. Okay, so now as you can see here, during this downtrend right here, all of our buy signals disappeared, because in order to get a buy signal, number one, the price has to be above the moving average. Number two, the MACD has to be above its moving average. And then number three, we're looking for like a little pullback in that upward move, meaning the stochastic actually has to go down and then cross back up. And when it does that, that's when we'll get that buy signal there at the very beginning of the move. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that for the sell side here as well. So I'll go back into the expert, and this time I'll go to the stochastic sell signal, and I'm going to grab the formulas for the bearish side, and we'll put them all into the bearish sell signal. So I'll go ahead again, make a copy of that formula. I'll jump over to my Symbols tab and open up our stochastic sell signal. And again, I'll put some spaces up here at the top and paste in that formula. And again, I'll put the word "and" in between here. So this is now looking for the closing price to be below its moving average and the stochastic crossing down below its moving average. So we'll click on OK. And then we'll do that one more time. We'll go to the Highlights tab, and I'll go to the bearish side here and make a copy of that formula. So I'll grab a copy of that, click on OK, go back to my Symbols tab, and paste that in as well. Okay, so paste that in, put the word "and" in here, and now we've got our three conditions. The close is below its 50-period moving average, and the MACD is below its moving average, and the stochastic is crossing down below its moving average. So again, this one, instead of a stochastic sell signal, it's going to be a combo sell signal. All right, so we'll click on OK, and click on close. And now you can see exactly what's happening. Like in a confirmed downtrend, the prices have to be below the moving average, number one. Number two, the MACD has to be below its signal or trigger line. Number three, the stochastic, actually in this case, is basically going to retrace to the upside in this downtrend. And then when it actually starts to move down again, that'll generate that sell signal. So again, you only get those sell signals in a confirmed downtrend. So let's go ahead and kind of zoom out here a little bit. And this will just kind of give you a little bit better idea of how this, kind of looks overall here. And as you can see here, you're only getting buy signals in a confirmed uptrend, and you're only getting sell signals in a confirmed downtrend, for example. So that's one way that you can combine different signals together and really kind of use this to help you develop some of these different types of trading strategies here and make these different indicators or show how these different indicators can then support each other. So at this point, for example, a lot of times what happens is that when I show somebody this particular trading strategy that we just created here tonight, a lot of times somebody will ask, well, how do I create it, or can I create something where if I get a buy signal at the very beginning of the move here, can I get rid of all the other buy signals until I get, for example, like an offsetting sell signal? And the answer is yes, absolutely you can do that. And that is something that we cover in our advanced formula writing classes. So if you're interested in creating something like this and you want to clean up a lot of the signals, I can walk you through specifically on how to do that particular example there. So hope that's helpful. So with that being said, let me give you just a quick rundown here of the type of services that we offer here at Learn MetaStock. Again, our website is up at learnmetastock.com. And at Learn MetaStock, we can help you in a lot of different ways. But primarily what we do is if you click up here at the very top, which says live classes, you'll see our live class schedule for the week. We do 3 live classes a week. We do them on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And for example, like today we did a class on moving averages, and tomorrow we're going to do a class on trend lines, scanning for breakouts. And what you do is once you become a member, then you can come up and see what the schedule is for the week. And if you want to join us at that time, just scroll down and click on the join live class, and you just immediately join our class. And what's nice about that is that way, if you've got questions, you can always ask us the questions during the class, and we can help you out directly at that time. Now, where most of our customers actually spend the majority of their time is in this area right here, which is called the video library. And what you'll find in our video library is that we have well over 100 training videos inside of here that'll cover literally from just getting started if you've never owned MetaStock before, all the way up through advanced formula writing and just about every step in between. And the way that we do that is we've got to kind of set up chronologically. So if you're brand new, I'd recommend that you just start with the very top subjects up here and just start working your way down. So for example, like this very first one, the introduction to technical analysis, just once you're logged in, just click on the watch now button. This will open up another page, which will give you a link directly to that video, a description over here on the right-hand side. And then down here in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see an area called resources. This is actually pretty important because if we create any type of formulas or outlines or anything else, you'll be able to access all of those by clicking on the link underneath the resources button here. And in addition to that, with most of our videos on the site, like the tutorial type of videos, we also include quizzes. And the quizzes are nice because what they do is they reinforce what we talked about or what we were teaching during that video. So again, this will just kind of be a way to reinforce some of the different concepts that we talked about or we showed you in the video. And there's self-scoring quizzes. So at the very end, you'll just see what your score is. And then, of course, you can jump back to that part of the video, which might not be super clear to you. So you can get a little bit better understanding of it. So I'll go ahead and click on the back arrow. The next section down at the very top here is called Getting Started. And for those of you kind of getting started with MetaStock, appropriately named, just start right up at the very top and just start working your way down. And primarily what you want to do is you want to at least go through these first 4 videos, and this will give you a really good understanding of the basics of the program. And why I always recommend somebody start off with the basics is because I see some people, they get excited, they see something on system testing or scanning, and they want to jump straight to that part, which is fine. But the problem I've seen is if you skip over the basics, a lot of times that'll kind of come back to get you. And I think your time would be well spent if you cover the basics first and then move on from there. So this is a good way to do it. Start at the very top, start working your way down, get through at least the first 4 in the getting started section. And then you can jump down to some of the different power tools. For example, like the forecaster. Here's a few different videos on the expert advisor, option scope. We've got a number of videos here just on system testing. This is an area that's actually really powerful inside of MetaStock, where you can take a particular trading strategy or idea, and then you can back test it on a historical data set. And the ability to do this, again, is extremely powerful. And what we'll do in this section is we'll literally walk you through step by step to show you exactly what you need to learn in order to do that successfully. So underneath that, we've got a whole group of videos just on the Explorer. And the Explorer is the part of the program that allows you to search or scan based on technical criteria. And this is probably my favorite part of the program because of the versatility of this part of the program. You can literally search for just about any type of technical criteria that you can pretty much imagine. And again, the ability to scan or rip through thousands of securities and come up with just a handful of securities that met the criteria you're looking for, I think is just incredibly powerful and incredibly useful. So this is a section I definitely recommend taking some time in. Underneath that, we've got a whole section here just on formula writing. So again, depending on what you want to learn, about the program and taking advantage of it, at least you might want to go through and take a look at it. And the more that at least that you get a basic understanding of the formula language, even if you're not going to write your own formulas, I think can be pretty beneficial, because at least it might give you a little bit more confidence in why that particular signal is being plotted on your chart, why it's giving you that buy or sell signal. So again, take it for what it's worth. But for those of you who want to learn a lot more about it, then, we've got plenty more information. And then in addition to that, we've got some videos on the RMO, and then we have a number of videos just on stops. And again, this is another area that I think is actually really important, because if you think about trading, anybody can get into a trade any point in time. But what really will determine whether you're successful or not is where you get out, right? So this is an area that a lot of people really don't spend a whole heck of a lot of time at when they're getting started. The vast majority of people getting started are looking for that golden system, right? They're looking for that perfect entry. And then if they get that perfect entry, they're going to make all the money in the world. Well, getting out of that trade is extremely important. And that's where a lot of people need to spend more time before they start to trade. And this is an area, again, like I say, where we can help you sort through that. We have a whole section on different types of indicators to go through. And one of our more popular sections on the website is this area here, which is the trading strategy section. And here's where we take a trading strategy from a published book or magazine, for example. And what we'll do is we'll show you exactly how to duplicate that strategy. And in addition to that, when you actually watch the video and you want to see or basically install those same formulas into your program, again, go to the resources and click on the file download, and we'll download those formulas directly into your MetaStock program. That is a huge time saver for anybody who is interested in getting more information out of their program. And as you'll see underneath this trading strategy section, we've gone through a lot of different strategies, and we're always looking to add to this as well. I find that extremely interesting, to take a trading strategy and show you how to duplicate it and maybe test it or scan based on it and so forth. But again, we've got a number of strategies for that. And then underneath that, we also will review and give you instructions on the different add-ons that MetaStock sells. So if you need some more help, you might want to take a look at these. Again, like I say, we'll walk you through specifically what you need to know about those. And then lastly, down here at the very bottom, for our real-time traders, we have a number of different videos on Zenith to kind of help get you started with that as well. So as you can see, we've got a lot of different ways to help you here. And if you're brand new to MetaStock and just getting started, we've also got some special pricing here for you as well. So And with that being said, I'm going to transfer over to Jeff and let him tell you about how you can get started with it.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Let me
You
go ahead
bet.
and can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Good. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. And we love MetaStock. One of the things, or learn Meta, we love MetaStock too. But one of the things about MetaStock is, it's a tool. It's a huge tool. We've been working on it for decades now, and like any other tool, the more you understand how to use the tools, the better they're going to work for you. And so we've been really actively working with learnmetastock.com for a number of years, and people love it. It's a good way to go in and get live classes every week. The downloads that Kevin showed are awesome. Hundreds of videos just available on any sort of topic that you might like. And we've had many people that have gone through learnmetastock.com and love it. Paul in our YouTube chat is saying right now, Learn MetaStock way is like I can't read. Learn MetaStock is a great way to understand the full capabilities of MetaStock. Great job, and I agree with that. Kevin does an outstanding job. And so what we're going to do is, it's normally, the Learn MetaStock site is $99 per month. If you're a brand new subscriber to learnmetastock.com, we're going to basically give you what we call a buy one, get two free. So we'll give you 3 months for the price of one. That breaks down your per month cost to just like $33 per month. And you can visit it. How did I lose the numbers on this PowerPoint? You can do that at metastock.com/learnmetastock 3-for-1. You can give us a call at 800. We're going to go ahead and do some on the fly. It was there. It just wasn't there. That is really bizarre. 1-800. Let's try this way. 882-3040. I don't know what's going on with that. Or you can visit metastock.com/sales chat, and they can get that set up for you. So I'm going to go ahead and type this phone number. I don't know why it keeps disappearing. Slides is being a little bit weird for me, but 800, there it is. I just won't touch it. 800-882. No, it's gone. 3040. Metastock.com/learnmetastock 3-for-1 or metastock.com/sales chat. So, and I'd encourage you to try it out. It's a great service, a great site. Particularly what I like is the ability. Maybe he needs to teach me a class on how to make my numbers stay on the PowerPoint. But 800-882-3040.
That's an advanced class, Jeff. That's an advanced class.
That's the advanced class. All right. Kevin, I want to say thanks for coming today. For everybody that came to the class, I hope it was helpful for you. Stay healthy, stay safe. We'll see you at the next one.